around age around age 4, actually around age 3, we started to develop. He started to develop some very interesting traits, very high energy, a lot of uh, just a lot of things that didn't seem to follow the book and that one would follow. And we were lucky enough because we know it's hard to find interventions and also places just to even get diagnostic work. We were lucky to get in. He was diagnosed with ADHD severe combined, and then luckily we found an angel of a um, of a occupational therapy company that asked me, "What do you know about autism?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, what do you mean?" So it turns out we also have an autistic son. He is level 1. And I don't usually ever say that when I talk about my son and I say he is autistic because I don't like to classify it. I feel like often it sometimes divides the community, but I do say that in this instance because it does sort of change sort of the reason why I got into advocacy kind of on accident on this side. We did go in and do Katie Beckett Medicaid, working through Idaho Health and Welfare, found the process incredibly difficult. Um, and it just sort of set something off in me where I said, if this is so hard for me, someone who has the time, who has the knowledge, who has the language, being that English was my first language, if this is so difficult for me, what is this like for parents with multiple children, potentially single parents? And one thing sort of leads to another. And here I am also advocating on behalf to law enforcement organizations and groups. And now I actually work as a paraprofessional in a high needs autistic classroom in a public school. It just kind of snowballs in that regard. I've found is you find something that works for you and you say, I want to make this work for everybody. And it's kind of where I'm here. I will say the death of Victor Perez hit me in my gut pretty hard when that happened, and I said, "How can we?" I said, "There's got to be people working on this," and so I've done my best trying to find people working in and around law enforcement. And I've seen some holes, but I've also seen some really amazing shining stars of individuals working to correct that what happened with that tragic instance in Pocatello. So. Um, I will leave it there.
Yeah, and then you've really done some systems work as well. And just to let people know, we're going to have lots of Q&A at the end. So throw your questions in the chat or hold on to them, and we will spend a lot of time on Q&A.
I have. I actually, because I am, and I guess I'm not afraid to call people. I used to work in political fundraising, so I just pick up the phone and I start to say, "Hello, hello, my name is Kat, and I have a question." It actually led me to post the peace officers standards and training, and I just started showing up at their meetings and getting to know the leaders in Idaho law enforcement and asking questions. What do you know about autism? What do you know? What sort of interventions do you guys employ? How can I get more involved? And I will tell you, I've been really heartened, I would say, by I would say, leaders in law enforcement. But at the same time, I know we have a lot of room to grow. Um, Obviously, I want to do it all yesterday, but I've come to realize, especially now working as a para in a public school, that we really kind of got to get back to basics and start very small. One of the things I'm really working on now is working with our SRO at our middle school, at our junior high, and wanting to start with sort of bridging the gap between communication of parents of autistic children of all levels and law enforcement, and trying to do sort of an introduction between the two, and then hopefully, building something that can be modeled elsewhere. It's a trial and error. And I felt like I really needed a lot more education personally, boots on the ground myself, which is why I wanted to become a para, and especially working with kids have different needs than my son, and it's been really great. So anyway, that's sort of my. I have big plans, but I realized we got to really. I have to really hone it in small and sort of work from there, because It's
Well,
the only
that
way
I'm
it's
working
ever going to
from.
work. Incremental change is still change. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for your work. And that is a perfect segue over to Grace and Katie, because you're talking about kind of how we make this work sustainable and what it looks like in our communities. And I think that Grace and Katie have a really nice perspective on how this really looks in our community with things like aware care and some of the dispatcher information. So we'd love to hear from you about that.
Absolutely. And we do have slides. I don't know if you are able to share that or if we need to share our screen.
Oh, you're welcome to share if you'd like, or I can share whatever is easier for you guys.
Probably easier if you share your screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, will do.
And can you hear us better now? Is that
A little better. Yeah,
we will
let
try to
me.
just speak really loud.
Okay. I'm trying to grab your slides really quick. Sorry, I just having a tiny bit of a technical difficulty getting them up,
No
so I
problem.
apologize. Yeah. Can you talk a little more about your background and kind of what brings you to this work?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Grace Johnston. Been with Sheriff's Office 4 years. Katie and I have been working on this together for a little over a year now. Um, I have a special needs cousin. He has Down syndrome and he is nonverbal. I also have two grandparents that had dementia, one of which wandered. So a program like this is very important to me personally because of my background with that.
Yeah, my name is Katie Ord. I've been with Ada Dispatch for about 5 years. Prior to dispatching, I worked in clinical case management out in San Mateo County, which is in the Bay Area, while taking care of my grandfather who had Alzheimer's. So this is a project I'm really passionate about, and we wanted to expand it, not just Ada County, but statewide. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit. Really excited to share it. Mm-hmm. So definitely our baby for the last year and a half, and we're hoping that it grows and people like it. So
yeah.
I love hearing about your passion for this work. That is so cool. And I'm pulling up your, got your slides ready to go. So we'll be a little more prepped
We
up
are
now.
both
Thank
Boise
you.
State graduates. I graduated in 2022, majored in psychology, minored in criminal justice.
Yeah, and I'm a graduate in 2018. Yeah, with a degree in social science with an emphasis in sociology and criminal justice as well. So yeah, we'll just kind of jump into it. If we can go to the next slide. I think it's 2 slides maybe.
There's Kat Miller. Okay.
So yep, this is us. We have a new logo, which we'll kind of go into a little bit. And then if you go to the next one. So why the overall change? We previously had a registry called ARVP, which is Ada County's Registry for Vulnerable Population. We saw this was started in 2018, and we have seen such a demand for it to grow since then, especially over the last year. So we wanted something that was a little bit more inclusive, and we've seen a huge request from out of county. So Canyon County, Gem County, even all over the state, people wanting to register, but it didn't really help them because we could only look within Ada County. And our end goal was to make this a statewide resource that helps community members share the important information to first responders, improving responses and building stronger relationships between other agencies as well as the community. And it's ever changing. So we're always changing it and taking new ideas and kind of morphing it a little bit.
Yep. And you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So kind of the reason for the name change, as Katie said, it was the Ada County Registry of Vulnerable Population, or the ARVP. Not only was that a mouthful of a name, but people didn't really understand what vulnerable meant. They may not have considered themselves in that population. So we come up with the name of Aware Care Ada County, or we just call it Aware Care, or ACAC. It kind of removes the stigma associated with the term vulnerable. Example that Katie likes to use is if somebody has schizophrenic and they are on their meds, they may not be vulnerable, but they go off their meds and they may very well be in that category. We wanted to open this to be more inclusive, kind of cover a broad spectrum of needs. So mental health, dementia, autism, hearing impairments, wandering tendencies, somebody that's diabetic, and kind of just anything people are willing to share with us.
And we have seen a huge uptick in people just wanting to register themselves, whether they're elderly and just live alone or their child walks home from school and sometimes it's later, but want that information front loaded for first responders so they don't question anything, the photos there and all of that. And we'll kind of go into it a little bit if you go to the next slide. So we redid our form completely. It was very outdated. So this is an example of what it looks like now. It renews every year. So we enter it into what's called our CAD system, which is the computer system dispatch uses. It's a lot more user friendly. We have separate boxes, and people can fill it out as much or as little as they would like. We introduce like an age range, height, things like that people may not be quite sure about, as well as like calming techniques, triggers, wandering tendencies, and that can be found on the Ada County Sheriff's Office website, the safety tab, and at the very bottom it says Aware Care. Our officers also carry cards that have a QR code that they can hand out to the community and people can fill it out. But we've changed it a lot and it's been super helpful, and we've gotten some really cool like calming techniques for people. So when officers are responding to these calls, they don't have to worry about like, how am I going to build rapport with this person? Or if say it's a child with autism and the lights are a trigger for them, officers know to turn that off, make their radios a little bit more silent so that external stimuli is lower for them. If you can go to the next slide.
As Katie mentioned earlier, we're wanting to include other agencies as we have that noticeable overlap. People may live in Canyon County but work in Ada or vice versa. So we definitely want to have that communication between agencies. So law enforcement officers that encounter individuals that they may be unfamiliar with, they can look it up in this registry, kind of figure out more about this person. So our solution is having a unified shared database with all agencies, starting with us in Ada County with this program, and then going to Canyon County and Idaho State Police, Elmore County, and kind of hopefully going to Idaho statewide. And the benefits of this program is it's faster responses, more informed decisions, and better collaboration between agencies.
And it is 100% confidential. It is housed in Ada County Dispatch. So there's no worry of it getting out to the public. Yes. It's just for first responders.
And we do have a legal disclaimer on the form. So people have to click that and sign their name that they are able to share the information that they are giving us. If you wouldn't mind going to that next slide.
So the mission for Aware Care is obviously we have a deep passion for improving service to the community members and our first responders. We want to make sure everyone's as informed as they can be. And we really want to expand it outside of Ada County. So say someone from Valley County comes to Boise and one of our officers encounters them, they know exactly what their needs are and how we can help them. We really wanted to enhance that interagency communication between different agencies so there's no lapse of treatment or care for people. And Aware Care is about improving technology, expanding collaboration with agencies, and ensuring the safety and proper responses for those community members. And like we said, it is changing, so we're always open to new ideas and how we can make it better for our responders as well as the community. And we have met with a lot of our community partners that want to be a part of it. So we're expanding and we're really excited about it.
Yep. And if you wouldn't mind going to that last slide. And I do see everybody's questions in the chat. I don't know, Sheila, if you want us to answer those now or just wait till that Q&A session.
Go for it. We have a little bit, the time. Since you're right here, let's just go for it. Yeah.
All right, great. And thank you everybody for listening to our presentation. Let me scroll back up. Let's look at some of these questions.
So it is a yearly thing that you have to re-register for every single year. Our CAD system only houses it for a year, unfortunately. It is helpful though, because things change, people move, all of that. Let's see. And as well as I'd like to know if someone is homeless in our community, we just attach it to their phone number. So if they were to call 911 or just Ada County Dispatch, it'll pop up as a warning for us. So we know to go and look at that.
Yeah. And when people do re-register in the form, they click either if it's a new form, that this is their first time filling it out, or if it's a renewal. So if the information has changed, that works for us. I don't know if there was any other questions.
Has this been just, and I'm seeing kind of the same, I think Poyer to answer it, but I just want to make sure it gets heard.
Yeah.
Oh, chat moving quickly. Do people need to re-register? So we've answered that. Has this been discussed with counties in North Idaho? And to kind of piggyback off that, somebody else in the chat had mentioned that I guess Post Falls police department keeps some kind of book. I don't know how they get into the book, like if they're being identified by law enforcement or if a person's self-identifying, but it sounds like Post Falls has some system in place. But if you had any other conversations with North Idaho?
So we are still working on getting in contact with Northern Idaho. Currently, we're just kind of working around Ada County with how we are expanding it. We've met with Idaho State Police, who is very interested in it, as well as Canyon. Nampa has met with us. So if anyone has a contact with Northern Idaho, we'd love to have a meeting and kind of explain it. As for the book out in Post Falls, I don't know how they do it there. Ours is anyone can register, whether it's like a caregiver, family member. An officer gives you a QR code to go look at it, and officers will also prompt people. Tara also goes out with our officers, and she's a really good resource for letting people know of like how to register.
And again, there is that legal disclaimer. So any information somebody shares with us, they have to have been given permission to share that information. So I can't just put, my neighbor on it because I want to. You have to have a good reason, and you have to have the right to share it with us.
As for going to Pocatello and sharing needs, our goal is to make AwareCare a statewide thing, so every agency uses the same forum. So it makes it a little bit more cohesive and easier for everyone to use. But if other agencies have things that they use that works, then that's more great. We just kind of wanted something that was like more accessible to everyone and
Yes.
more anyone can register. You don't have to be living with mental health or anything like that. We have some really cool people on the registry that just kind of want their information loaded, like medications they're on. So if fire goes out, they know exactly what medications they're taking and how we can help them.
Yep. And then what happens to the old form? So as Katie mentioned, our CAD system, our computer system can only house it for a year, but we can see that somebody was registered. We just can't see what is said on that form after a year, just due to system limitations.
And when it does come up to the year mark, we send out an email with a reminder that your form's about to expire. Please re-register, and here's the link. And on the slide, it does have our email, or I guess it doesn't.
It is at the very bottom.
It has, okay. It has the AwareCare email. And if anyone has questions, you can always email. We run the email, so we're happy to get back with anyone. And if we don't know the answer, we're always happy to figure it out.
Yeah. So you can email one of us, both of us. Our emails are at the very bottom there. So mine's gjohnston@adacounty.id.gov, and hers is kord, same line. Or you can just email awareCare@adacounty.id.gov, and that is both of us have that email. So whatever's easiest, you can always email us questions. If you have any ideas for the form, any changes you'd like to make, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you don't remember the email, you can always call non-emergency dispatch.
Hold on. Trying to mute that person. There we go. Thank you. Okay. And one more, maybe we'll have one more question that I want to make sure to get to Tara, then we'll come swing back around. Pocatello's new mayor just sent an email this week about Know Me to advise law enforcement officers and other responders of specific needs tied to the home address. Do you have any awareness or connection to that work?
We have nothing to do with that. It's kind of similar to how ours is. Ours is attached to the person's address, phone number, as well as if we run someone based on just like generic name, we can pull it up that way. Or if we are out with someone who is nonverbal, officers have we have a couple different computer systems they can use if they're registered. We can pull it up that way. So it makes it a little bit easier, and it has like contact information, things like that. So I'm sure it's similar. I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah. And thank you for that information. We can reach out to them, kind of see how they run their system, maybe get some ideas off of them as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great information. And then Tara, we've heard your name a couple times, so we'd love to hear about your perspective about what this all looks like.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my PowerPoint. So give me just a
Oh, okay.
second.
Do you have different slides? Because I have your smiling face up right now.
Yes, I have.
Okay, let me make you a co-host, and I will show you that. Yep. Is it working for you?
Okay, can you see it on your end?
Maybe I need to stop sharing. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna stop my share. Okay, maybe try to share it again now. I just stopped. There you go. Oh, you're in. Got it.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
up?
see you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So again, my name is Tara Curry. I'm a licensed clinical social worker for the sheriff's office. I co-respond out into the community with law enforcement on an array of crisis calls, whether it be mental health. We're getting a lot more of the dementia calls, neurocognitive kind of calls. So I put a lot of information into these slides. I know I only have 10 minutes, so we probably won't be able to cover everything, but I think you guys all have access to these slides later. And then, of course, during the Q&A, I can answer questions as well. Okay, so when to involve law enforcement. So some of the more common calls that we get, particularly from caregivers who are caring for folks with a disability, whether it be, like I said, mental health, developmental delays, TBI, dementia. Some of the more common ones, suicidal calls, particularly with the older folks when they start to feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. They feel like they're a burden. Those are when those calls start to surface. Domestic violence, battery, fight situations, when someone becomes physically aggressive with family members or friends or their caregivers. I see this when someone doesn't recognize their spouse as being their spouse, or they're angry when they're going through that transition with dementia. Their keys are taken away. They start to get going through some of those adjustments. Missing vulnerable adult, we get these calls. It can be from family member or caregiver calling their person in as missing, or we'll get community members who find someone wandering in the community. They may not remember their name, their address, they're disoriented. So those are just some of the more common calls that we get from you guys. Information to provide to dispatch. So this is pretty important when you call into dispatch and needing law enforcement response. They let us know what the call was and some of the information that's important for us to know as we are responding. If someone is violent or combative, if they have a weapon, if they're armed, or they have access to weapons within the home, any aggressive animals, medical concerns, so we can get EMS en route as well. If they've ingested any substance or they're intoxicated, how they will respond to law enforcement. Do they know we're coming? Sometimes it's a little softer approach if I were to approach them versus a law enforcement in uniform. So those are important things to know. Any mental health diagnoses, and then who all is in the home, just so we don't have any surprises. And then what happens when law enforcement arrives? So first and foremost, we assess for everyone's safety. And we gather information from the patient and or caregivers. Some of the things we like to know are diagnoses, history of behavior, symptoms, what current medications they're on, or if they are taking medication, any changes to the medications. If they've made a threat, that's important for us to know. Recent life stressors, let's say maybe they just moved into a new home, got a new caregiver, things like that. Medical concerns, a UTI. We see this with the elderly population, someone who may not have any history of mental illness suddenly becomes psychotic. If they have a UTI, this often places them in a psychotic episode. If they are involved in any treatment, whether it be counseling or any outpatient services, their level of insight, do they recognize that they have an illness or maybe their need for treatment? And then if they pose a threat to themselves or others, especially if we were to leave, what is that going to look like? And then we discuss options with the patient and caregivers. And the options, so first, we like to do least restrictive. So we try to create and implement a safety plan with their support system and or caregiver. The crisis center, this is a voluntary place where they can go. It's a great resource if they are appropriate for the crisis center. Family take them to see their PCP if it doesn't necessitate a visit to the emergency department. This is a good option. if they do need to go to the emergency department, will they go voluntarily? We try to encourage caregivers or loved ones to take them in place of going in an ambulance or in the back of a patrol car. We like them to go with family members if possible. If it gets to a point where they meet the criteria for a mental health hold, we will place them on a hold and take them to the emergency department. That's dependent on guardianship, of course. And then we can also place them on a neurocognitive hold. This is a new law as of about a year and a half ago. This was implemented where there's exclusion to a mental health hold. It has to be, their symptoms have to be due to a mental illness. And so it was not allowing us to take people who needed to be evaluated and taken to the emergency department who may have had a neurocognitive disorder, such as Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, Huntington's, things like that. We were not able to get them to the hospital safely. So this neurocognitive hold is for that population, and it basically gives law enforcement the authority to transport these folks to the emergency department for a medical evaluation. And then, of course, we assess for any medical need, and then we will have EMS take over at that point. Some other resources that are good for you folks to know: 988 is a suicide and crisis hotline. It's 24/7. You can call anytime. IdahoHelp.org. There's a plethora of great resources on this website. Board of Guardians. I always encourage people to at least educate themselves on what guardianship looks like, especially if they are caring for, let's say, their elderly family members or other members, parents, whatever it may be. Because at some point, guardianship is something that Idaho recommends or sorry. And then ALS 81, they are community paramedics, and we work closely with them. They are additionally trained in mental health and also in the neurocognitive. So if it may not be a law enforcement call, we get there and we decide it's not law enforcement, then these paramedics can take over the calls. And then the last one is Aware Care, which Katie and Grace have already covered. This is pivotal for law enforcement response. This gives us so much information. So it's not only helpful for the community members, but for us responding, it's a great tool. Okay, confidentiality. What can I tell law enforcement? So this is something that I get asked quite often. We're not really sure what information we can share with you, but there are exceptions for sharing information with law enforcement, especially in the presence of a crisis. If it's a crisis situation that's relevant to that crisis, then HIPAA and confidentiality doesn't apply to law enforcement. Emergency binder. So this is something that I have seen more in like reshabs, but I think it's very important for any caregiver to have, especially if you're caring for more than one person, to have different binders that's tailored just for that specific person. So typically they're located near the front entrance. It's easy access for any first responders to quickly access that information. And it also helps responders understand the whole picture and not just the crisis that's happening today, because we are likely going to respond to that home again. So these are just some of the important things to have in those binders: diagnoses, medication list, the next medication dose, that's important, triggers, de-escalation tips. Those are both really important things. I won't go through all of them. And then this is something that I wanted to add in here. Our detectives in our property crime division are inundated right now with these cases, unfortunately. There's a lot of scams happening especially with our elderly population. Phone call scams, it's probably one of the biggest ones. They try to exploit people for financial gain. So education is big here. Just educate all your folks on what to do, what not to do. And I know that there are some other good resources out there. I didn't put them in here, but I can get them posted on here later, where you can find some of this information for education purposes. And I think that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was so informative information. That was so informative. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm seeing a lot of questions and kind of just comments in the chat. So we had someone that more of a comment, but just talking about his son being called. The son called 911 one time because he was mad at his father. So police were dispatched and fortunately very understanding and informed him that he needed to respect and obey his father. So we do have some nice examples of positive interactions with law enforcement. We love seeing that. So as far as being ITA'd, which is an involuntary hold, if the person is in danger to themselves or others, does that supersede guardianship? I'm not
So
sure.
with
Yeah.
yeah, yes and no. So um, guardianship, and it looks different from state to state. So in Idaho, people think if they have power of attorney, they have authority to place somebody into a hospital, admit them into a hospital on their behalf. Unless it specifically outlines that, it is pretty rare in Idaho, but they don't have that authority. It has to be guardianship. So let's say we respond to somebody who has a guardian. If we don't know they have a guardian or they can't prove to us that they are guardian, we can still place them on a hold. And then at that point, through that process, they have a designated examiner through the state of Idaho. They will go through that process and verify if they do have a guardian, and then they can drop it at that point. But we always like to err on the side of caution. If they need to be taken to the hospital, we will do that.
And then just some comments. The Tina Bainey commented that she had a caregiver notebook she's put together, and it's actually linked in her private Facebook group, Idaho Caregivers Unite. So that's definitely a resource on Facebook for that kind of stuff. But anything to add to that? Okay. And I'm not seeing any more questions from the audience right now, so keep throwing them in the chat. Then I'm seeing well, actually, I'm seeing a couple of things come up. I got a text actually. Um, I think folks are kind of wanting to know if a caregiver has like, and this might be kind of directed at, I don't know if it's Tara or maybe Katie and Grace, or Kat, you may have something to say about this as well. If a caregiver has never connected with law enforcement before, what's a simple first step they could take?
Can I chime in just because I'm
Yes,
just
please.
as a random mom? My best suggestion, and one thing that, I'm speaking specifically to the autistic community. And again, I want to, when I say this, it's the difference between mental health, if you're having a mental health crisis and you're having an autistic meltdown, are two very different things. So behavior intervention and what we do with the autistic community are very different. So what I always, when I talk to people when they're advocating on behalf of the autistic community, is don't take for granted that necessarily people understand the difference. And our law enforcement are people with the hearts the size of, they want to help. They are helpers. And I think the best thing that you can always do is anytime you have an interaction, if you have a child in school, get to know the SRO and say to them, do you have experience around an autistic individual? And, or for example, what I do when we go and encounter our SROs in our class and throughout our school, I say, I want to introduce you to my friend here. She doesn't speak, she doesn't use her voice to speak. She uses an AAC, or she uses vocalizations, or I say that I want to introduce you to my friend. When he is overwhelmed, he runs. It's called elopement. And it looks very, very much like he's trying to get away from something or doing something bad, because as we all know, autism doesn't have a look. You're not going to look at this individual and understand that. There are no stupid questions. That's another thing. Anytime I encounter somebody in law enforcement, I always, one of our SROs has said, is this something that she'll grow out of? And I was like, nope, this is how she communicates. She scripts and she talks in Disney movies. And it is just exposure. And it's having that expectation that the law enforcement is here to be helpful. They want to be helpful. But we also have to take into consideration they cannot be experts in everything. So it's introducing yourself, it's introducing your child or your loved one, and just continuing it to be a reminder. Start small, start in your community, start at your school, and just remind them autism doesn't have a look. And just because I say someone can look at my son and he's level 1 autism and he can mask and he can very much pass as a neurotypical, he has struggles, and there are going to be times that he is going to have meltdowns that can look very much as if it is a behavioral health issue, but it's not. It's an autism meltdown. And I think that's one of the best things that we can do as parents of autistic or have loved ones in autism is to try to work and explain the difference between the two. And that's, for me, that's the best way. And again, it's just to remind people autism doesn't have a look, and autistic people share traits regardless of their ability to communicate or not communicate.
And I appreciate that. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Kat. I would say that I would kind of expand that even more and just say that most people with disabilities don't always look a certain way. Like we get an idea about what a person with a disability might look like. And so yeah, we're really hearing that. Yeah, so just thank you for illuminating that again of just like we don't always know what by appearance what somebody may be managing internally. So Katie and Grace or Tara, do you have any follow up on that about kind of first steps or how folks can kind of, take those first steps with communicating?
I would say a good first step, if you don't live here in Ada County and you're not wanting to, fill out the Aware Care form or whatever, just call non-emergency dispatch. Get in touch with law enforcement and kind of, see what resources they have, what training they have if you have any questions regarding that, or if there's information you're wanting to give about your child, your friend, your neighbor, or whatever. You can just call non-emergency, get in touch with an officer, and kind of talk about that. I don't know if you've been any further with that.
Yeah, and for Ada County, if you do call non-emergency dispatch, we'll get you in contact with one of our patrol officers or Tara or one of our clinicians, depending on where in the county you live, and they have great information and then can refer you to different areas.
Yep.
But I think that's a good start for law enforcement, and then you can just share what you want with us.
Yep. And if you live in Ada County, please fill out the Aware Care form. It has been super helpful already. So
I bet. Yeah.
Yep.
Tara, do you have anything to add to that or anything we're missing so far?
No, I think they hit it. Calling dispatch. I do get emails and phone calls if they call dispatch. Like they said, they will contact me or send me a note saying that somebody is interested or wanting to learn more, and then I can contact them directly. So that's a great resource. We do a lot of training through the schools. Our academy, we teach, like Kat was saying earlier, we teach the difference between special needs and mental health and how to respond to each one of those depending on what what the behavior is or diagnosis may be. So we do a lot of training within Ada County.
Okay. All righty, we are heading to the final 10 minutes of the session. And we hear about this at the Idaho Caregiver Alliance, I think, fairly frequently. So I'd love to ask about it. If an officer arrives and the caregiver is understandably upset or overwhelmed, what can kind of help de-escalate that moment? So I think maybe just some tips around de-escalation strategies or what might be helpful for folks to kind of remember in these times of crisis. I don't know if anybody who might want to pinch in on that.
Are you saying to de-escalate the caregiver?
Yeah, just to de-escalate the situation in general. Like if law enforcement's there and we've got everybody kind of going on, like what are just some de-escalation tips?
Well, typically we like to separate the parties. There's a lot of tension, right? They may be triggering each other. So with my team, there are three of us, two CIT deputies who are trained in CIT, and then myself as the clinician. And then depending on what the call is, we may have other deputies who will come with us as well. So we like to separate the parties, kind of calm the situation down, and then figure out what's going on and make the best option from there. But usually separating all the parties is most effective.
Okay, awesome. Anything else to say about that? It might be helpful for folks to know from anybody. All right. Oh, Kat, I see you coming off mute, maybe.
Well, the only thing I think always is to learn breathing techniques, and always anytime you're stepping in there, and the best regulation is co-regulation, and it is a practice. I do it every day. I do it not just with my son, not just with my students, but I do it with myself. Any breathing techniques that one can work and practice and implement, you'll find that that is going to be helpful in any times of crisis. Because when you're in a time of crisis, you can't pull on any of the tools that you have. It needs to be something that is sort of innate that you have been working on and strategizing, whether it is touching a pulse point, whether it is doing certain, the counting of the breaths. Don't discount the strategies that we teach to children. They are strategies that are going to help and benefit you throughout your entire life. Breathing is the number one best way that we can get ourselves into a good baseline, and then work with the law enforcement. So the calmer that we can remain, the calmer that the law enforcement can remain, the calmer the situation and the best outcome that we're going to have. But again, I think I can never stress enough taking the deep breath.
But just really kind of regulating and being mindful is what I'm hearing about, just kind of thinking about how we do that. Okay.
And doing it as a practice and doing it every day so that when we do hit those times of crisis, it is not something that you have to think about to pull on. It is something that is already something that you do as just a part of your daily practice. So it might sound silly. It might feel silly at first, but it is the best way when you feel like you're in crisis. And I think anybody and everybody that is listening in on this panel, everybody that is on the panel has been in a moment of crisis, probably more times than we could possibly count. And we can look back and think about the times when it went terribly wrong. And we can look back and think on the times that it's gone really well. And whatever strategies that we can use that help us to get to that sense of peace is going to be able to make any situation with law enforcement better. Because it is a stressful moment when you see somebody. I am stressed when I see my SRO at school, not because I think that he is a bad person, that something's going to happen. You see the uniform, it's a little scary, it's intimidating. He's carrying a gun. It doesn't matter whether you are regulated or not. It's just, it is a scary situation. Regard to consider your anxiety up. So I also think just the more we can be exposed to having law enforcement in the community, in their and hopefully try to find situations where we can expose our loved ones to those situations, the better that we're going to do overall. It helps to desensitize us a bit to being so traumatic.
Thank you, Kat. You're getting a little crackly, just so you know. So you're okay. I just want to let you know. So, what I'm trying to kind of think through this, how to answer this, how to ask this question, but I think what I'm kind of hearing about, and this might be one that the whole group might have some feedback on, or what details are most important to communicate during a 911 call. I think we hear from caregivers sometimes they want to call and give the whole story. We want to call and give the whole story. And that can be really tough, and they feel kind of pushed back because law enforcement saying, "Look, just tell them what's going on right now," or dispatcher saying, "Tell them what's going on right now." Not 5 years ago. I think that can be tricky. And so, what do you recommend to people who are calling into dispatch and need help? Like, what do they need to get out there? What do they need to get going or get communicated?
The most important thing is going to be the address. That's going to be the first question. Where are we sending the help? As dispatchers, we will politely direct the caller with the information that we are needing. As Tara mentioned, like the most important things like weapons, under the influence, who is there, how many people, and those kind of questions. But we'll politely direct the caller with what we're needing, politely interrupt them if they're telling us things that, may not necessarily apply in that moment. And then I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, so we normally will ask questions based on what's happening right now. And then kind of the further along the call goes, we'll get those calming techniques. And we do a lot of times if someone is in crisis or something like that on the phone, we do those breathing techniques to get them calmed down before law enforcement does show up. That is a big part of our job, is setting the scene for officers responding, as well as controlling what we can and calming people down. Yep. But we are trained to ask certain questions, and we'll tell me exactly what's happening right now. And then if someone's giving you kind of a story from like 5 days ago, we'll be like, well, what's happening right now? Mm-hmm. And then we ask, like Grace and Tara said, like weapons, calming techniques, people in the house, mm-hmm. things they like that can kind of prep people. But yeah. And then additional information is always good, but address 100% is the most important thing.
So we can touch back on that 5 days ago and how it's relevant to what's going on right now. But what's going on right now while you're calling 911 is the most important.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, Katie, Grace, and Tara, we are just seeing such good feedback in the chat. I've been seeing a lot of little hearts and smiley faces and thumbs up and all the things you love to see. So just thank you to all four of you for the service you're doing in our community and really showing up for caregivers today. We really appreciate you all. And so we are out to break until 1:45. And so you could get you a couple extra minutes on your break and stretch out a little bit and maybe go regulate. And we'll see you back in about 15 minutes. All right, take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.